Who are you reporting on?
Murti.
A book that I read some 6 or 7 times. I read it first in probably 1963 or 4 when I was at the Lamas Buddhist Monastery of America. And I've just read it. And a lot of my work is in, I really appreciate what Murti did, but it's also in response to. Yes, please.
Okay. I'm talking about Murti's view of the two truths and talking about how Murti's view of the absolute, as he calls it, affects his view of analytical meditation and of analysis in general. Okay. T.R.V. Murti defines the ultimate and conventional truths. Paramartha Satya, or absolute truth, is the knowledge of the real as it is without any distortion. And Samvriti Satya is truth so-called, truth as conventionally believed in common parlance. From these definitions, it seems that for Murti, the two truths are consciousnesses. They are different perspectives on the real. His view seems to be supported by such statements as, the Madhyamaka holds that the absolute is cognized in a non-dual intuition, prāsaṅgika. It is that intuition itself. And the absolute is the only real. It is identical with phenomena. The difference between the two is epistemic, subjective, and not real. The view of the two truths as consciousnesses is divergent from that of the Galupas. To quote Nguyen, concealed truths are objects found by conventional valid cognition, while ultimate truths are objects found by ultimate valid cognition. Conventional valid cognition is not superseded or invalidated by ultimate valid cognition. Nguyen cites Chandrakirti to validate this division of objects of knowledge. Also, between those two natures, that which is the object of a perceiver of reality is suchness. It is ultimate truth. That which is the object of a perceiver of the false is a concealer truth. So, according to the Galupas, the two truths are not consciousnesses, but the objects of consciousnesses. Additionally, the Gaelics would argue with Murti's statement that the difference between the ultimate and conventional is merely epistemic. For the Galupas, the ultimate and conventional truths are different objects of knowledge, even though they are the same entity. Oddly, Murti also defines the two truths in terms of objects of knowledge. He writes, likewise, all things take on two forms owing to the manner of our apprehension. One is the tattva, which is the object of right knowledge, and the other is the object of false knowledge. Murti cites Chandrakirti to support this statement. Nguyen's translation of the Chandrakirti is as follows. And thanks to Paul for getting me that reader ahead of time to look this up. Buddha said that all phenomena have two entities, those found by perceivers of reality and of falsities, that objects of perceivers of reality are suchnesses, and that objects of perceivers of falsities are concealed truths. This apparent contradiction in his work is sidestepped by Murti by saying, one and the same thing is the object of either true or false knowledge. Nguyen answers this claim from the Galupas. However, if instead the two truths were two ways of looking at precisely the same thing, then the ultimate truth cognition would supersede and discredit the conventional truth cognition. Both could not be valid. Murti may have anticipated this type of attack when he wrote the following on the purpose of the conventional truth. Paramartha is the end or goal that we seek to attain, and samvriti is the means. It is the ladder or the jumping board which enables us to reach that objective. So for Murti, the conventional truth is a necessary evil that leads to the ultimate truth.
That this statement about Paramartha is the end or goal we seek to attain, and Samvriti is the means, comes out of the 6th chapter of Chandrakirti's, whatever we call it, supplement in the middle. So then you can turn to that source.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to see the source from which he's getting. Please.
Murti's position that ultimate truth is knowledge of the real suggests a question. What is Murti's conception of the real? For the Gelugpas, an ultimate truth is an emptiness. Murti seems to be positing a more substantial real. He says, tattva, or the real, is something in itself, self-evident and self-existent. This self-evident thing is intuition, which Murti equates with the real.
It would be good to talk about how in Gelugpa, when emptiness is directly cognized, the mind and the object that it's realizing, emptiness, are totally fused.
Never said something about that the two, even at that time, are just still distinct ontologically, but it's just that in your experience they're the same. And she makes something distinction about that.
Yes, I mean, it's claimed there's a consciousness there and there's emptiness there, but difference is not appearing to that consciousness. It shows you the lengths to which they will go in order not to make emptiness consciousness and consciousness emptiness. Yes.
Okay. Napper criticizes Murti on his equation of ultimate truth with ultimate state, saying that this view advocates a mere stopping of conceptuality rather than analysis as the means to meditate on the ultimate. This criticism may be an understatement. While Murti does seem to equate samvrti satya with reason, his definition of reason may be more narrow than to include all analysis. So his statement that thought is a distortion of the real seems to be an across-the-board condemnation of all conceptuality. But Murti quickly follows with, negation is thus the despair of thought, but it is at once the opening up of a new avenue, the path of intuition. He seems to differentiate between negation and other thought. Negation is the road to intuition, which for Murti is the ultimate, while thought, presumably any positive statement, is a distortion of the real, a concealed truth. Supporting this reading, Murti writes, the dialectic does not bring intuition into existence de novo. It only removes the obstructions and limitations which have been obscuring. Murti's view of the path of liberation in Buddhism now begins to become clear. According to this outlook, the practitioner gets in touch with his/her fundamental intuition, ultimate truth, through the stopping of conceptuality, concealed truth, by means of the dialectic of negation. A possible Gaelic criticism of this position is that if the stopping of thought is the real, how does one get to this stopping through more thought, i.e. negation?
Discussion? From a Yogic perspective, is language deconstructing itself?
It's deconstructing its inherently existent self.
Yes. See, what we have to say is, but what's being refuted is the inherent existence of these. And then after that, you have to say, but it is very difficult for us to separate out language from inherently existent language, etc. Right? But it is important to identify the different that there is a difference between inherently existent objects and mere objects. But what is that experience of conceptuality? It's looking to see, is it this, having a target in mind that you're looking for, and then looking for it and not finding it. See, you may call that conceptuality, but it has tremendous feeling tone to it, as much as, somebody opens the door, and smoke billows in. We put together, conceptually, wherever there's smoke, there's fire, here there's fire. Like that. And whoa, It's like so, and so it is with respect to this kind of conceptuality. It's not the mere system-building conceptuality. There is certainly a system-building conceptuality, certainly. But that's not what they say will lead to cognition of emptiness. The system-building conceptuality will help to show where you are in the system, what's to be done next, and so forth. The conceptuality that we're talking about is this You know, everything's up for grabs. Search. There's a certain vision that comes from building a system. Blueprint, vision, that will then lead the person on and becomes a path practice, I think, right in itself. But it's a preliminary type of practice. One actually has to actually do these steps. So people often confuse the Gelupa system building, consider this source, consider that source. You know, here's a source that seems to contradict what I just said. How am I going to interpret it into the system? To confuse that with the actual practice of the system. The practice of the system requires silence, requires developing calm abiding. And from looking at many Gelupas, you can say, well, do they get any time to practice? Because they're always system building. And when they, you know, you start making generalizations, in Dharamsala, for instance, you know, when do you find people who are doing system building and debating and so forth, do they have a time during the day when they actually do meditate? And Geshe Rabdan talks about meditating even in the debating courtyard while he was waiting for something to happen, mind becoming absorbed in an issue. And I think there's a suggestion in his book that he realized emptiness at that time. It's structured so you leave the monastery and go up to the mountain for a retreat. But is there any time, I'm asking, of which they, even the ones who are really wrapped up in book knowledge and so forth, when they withdraw? Probably some do, some don't. I'm not saying one's good and the other's bad. I'm saying that some people feel that all the Gelupas are doing are system construction. Yes.
Conceptuality, which investigates, as you say, is this the one through which you make that leap, to call it somewhere between dual and non-dual, what is it, perception?
Well, in a sense, because you see you're searching and not finding, and that not finding is something that if you have the strength of mind from calm abiding and so forth, you're really impressed with. You know, you stick with it. And there's less and less of a sense of duality. So you see, everything up until direct cognition is called conceptuality. Even though you're not thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about that, as long as there's some, what it's called meaning generality, right? We sometimes call it conceptual image with all these terms, but it's something less than direct cognition. There's a tremendous range of conceptuality. Even the mind of special insight at the beginning, or throughout the path of preparation. These are all conceptuality. But it's not thinking, oh yeah, because of this, because of that, and so forth. You're understanding, just as we understand and have sure knowledge of fire, even though we didn't see it. Sure knowledge, and you can act on it, and it moves you.
So that sign, the smoke that you see through the door, that's a concept? It's conceptuality?
No, you're seeing with your eye consciousness,
Right.
But you're recalling, you're recalling that wherever there's smoke, there's fire. It's not we could run from smoke, think it was chemical smoke or something, but where you see, oh my God, there must be a fire.
Mm-hmm.
That one. You're not seeing the fire, you're seeing a sign.
So the sign doesn't have to be conceptual. I mean, inference can be
The
using
sign-
conceptual.
The sign can be based on a direct perception.
My point is that would not, I don't think, my thinking, I wouldn't say inferring fire from smoke without thinking that would be conceptuality.
But you're thinking of it very fast, you're putting it together. Wherever there's smoke, there's fire, there must be fire there.
Right.
And that, you see, it's so much like direct perception that we would think we'd call it direct perception. If we ever had an inference of emptiness, or probably even a correct assumption about emptiness, we'd think it was direct perception. We would think that because it was so overwhelming, so overpowering. And it's the, you're, just as you know that there's fire there, it's so definite, it's so clear. You see, it isn't just a matter of, oh yes, there are 7 possibilities, it's not this, not that, none of this, oh, therefore it's empty. No, you're looking for it. That's why they use typical examples like, you lost your Great Dane, right? You have only 3 rooms to your house, and your Great Dane's going to be in one of those rooms. And you go and you look, your prized Great Dane that's worth $40,000. And you look, you scour it, right? You got a big house. You scour it, closing each door as you go. And you come to a conclusion about the absence of this Great Dane. That's why they use the example of the prize of the bull, and the farmer has 3 fields. But looking. But this is done so thoroughly and so hard for this thing that's so dear to you, inherent existence. That when you don't see it, it's crash. It's no minor matter. We call it intuition. But the leap is not, what is it? It's not merely a matter of clearing away obstacles. It certainly is a matter of clearing away obstacles. Thinking that this is findable. This reassurance that things do exist this way. That's being cleared away. That's the valid cognition eliminates superimpositions. Untitled Chapter. Untitled Chapter. Eliminate superimpositions. Ginlotre said he figured an etymology of Gondal means to throw a feather, and dal is to hang on. And you attach feathers to an arrow. You see you're attaching something extra, and that's how it comes to mean superimposition. I was just his etymology. So eliminating superimpositions means eliminating obstacles in a way. It's your belief in the opposite. But the path of reason itself, when done in this manner, supposedly yields this result. Okay, then, last time we talked about 2 topics, wasn't it? Was it ālaya-vijñāna?
Yeah, I did ālaya.
You did ālaya, and who did? And you did what?
Selflessness.
Selflessness. Now, ālaya-vijñāna, this is a unique tenet of the Prāsaṅgika. Their non-assertion of ālaya-vijñāna is a unique tenet, right? Of the Prāsaṅgikas.
Yes.
Because these are 16 unique tenets. Well, does everybody else assert ālaya-vijñāna? Does Mahaviveka assert an ālaya-vijñāna? Who asserts an ālaya-vijñāna among the 4 schools of tenets? Oh, all Chitamatrans assert an ālaya-vijñāna?
No.
No? Who?
Chitamatrans following scripture.
Following scripture. Who are they? The ones following whom? Prāsaṅgika. Yeah. And who are the others? Who are they following?
Reason.
And who are they? What masters? Dharmakirti and Dignaga. And so they don't assert ālaya-vijñāna, even within Chittamatra. Does anybody else assert ālaya-vijñāna? Do the Vaibhashikas? What? Do the Sautrantikas? Do the Yogic-madhyamakas? Now there's the one where you might have a qualm. Do they assert ālaya-vijñāna? No. The only group that does is like 1/2 of Chittamatra. So everybody else, Prāsaṅgika, Yoga, what do you say? Svatantrika-madhyamaka in both of its branches, Svatantrika-madhyamaka and Yoga-Svatantrika-madhyamaka, as well as the Chittamatra following reasoning, as well as the Sautrantikas, as well as the Vaibhashikas, all of them say there ain't no such thing as an ālaya-vijñāna. So, how can the non-assertion of an ālaya-vijñāna be a unique tenet of the Prāsaṅgikas? How can it be? Oh, then it's not a unique tenet. Are you saying it's not a unique tenet?
Yes.
Yes, it's not a unique tenet. Okay. Then Giant Shiv was wrong when he said these are 16 unique tenets. And Giant Shiv is such a jerk. He doesn't even know that these others don't assert. And that he himself wrote a long exposition of tenets, right? Called the Great Exposition of Tenets. And he himself, even though he wrote this, didn't even bother to remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In what sense is it a unique tenet? Because it's by way of not asserting that the ālaya-vijñāna is established by way of its own character, by way of refuting inherent existence, because it's by way of that. So then how is it by way of inherent existence that, by way of asserting inherent existence, that one would posit an ālaya-vijñāna? That they do, this Chittamatran group. We're not saying that everybody who asserts inherent existence asserts an ālaya-vijñāna, right? But they, because they're addicted to inherent existence, end up asserting an ālaya-vijñāna. Okay, put those two together. Addiction to inherent existence, asserting ālaya-vijñāna. How do those two come together?
The habitual cause and effect in the face of
Oh, what kind of cause and effect? Karmic cause and effect. What do you mean?
mind stream of sentient beings.
How? What's the problem?
One lifetime to another.
One lifetime to another, for instance. One aeon to another. And what's the problem? What's the problem?
They're looking for some place where these seeds can accrue from.
Yes, they're looking for a medium. And what do some of the other schools posit as the medium that connects karmic cause and karmic effect?
Just take this mental consciousness.
Some people posit a subtle form of the mental consciousness, neutral form of the mental consciousness that carries the seeds from lifetime to lifetime. In highest Yoga Tantra, there's the fundamental innate mind of clear light, which even the Gelugpa Prāsaṅgikas accept. There's something called obtainer, prapti, within some Vaibhashika schools. There's also something called, that's Sautrantika, something called non-wastage. A factor of non-wastage that makes sure that there's the connection. You can see what people were. Now, why are they so concerned? Because there are mindless states. Buddha said there are mindless states. Even mindless states. States of the meditative equipoise of cessation, in which the mind has ceased. Well, in great vehicle versions of this, they say it's coarse levels of mind, actually. There has to be some kind of subtle, neutral mind. It has to be neutral, it can't be virtuous or non-virtuous, because it contains the seeds of both, right? Or it's something that can serve as the vehicle for both. It becomes very interesting. Well, see, so they're trying to find something that's quite solid to make this connection. They're also trying, when you look for the person, you've got to come up with something. And supposedly they come up with the ālaya-vijñāna. But there's not one syllable in Indian Chittamatra doctrine that says that the ālaya-vijñāna is the person. But Gelugpas say that according to this branch of Chittamatra, when you search for the person, this is what you'll come up Okay, what are the ones, we're gonna finish all the rest today, of course. Who's next?
Number 3,
Yes.
prime cognition and conventional valid cognition. And 2 points of this chapter are that conventional valid cognition is necessarily mistaken, and that prime cognition is not necessarily a new realization. And in order to spin out the argument here, I just quoted from Kozer because he laid it out very clearly. All consciousnesses of childish persons, ordinary beings who have not realized emptiness and thereby become superiors, are mistaken in the sense that they are not unpolluted by the appearance of true existence. In fact, all instances of conventional valid cognition, whether those of childish persons or superiors, are mistaken in the sense that their objects appear to be truly existent. This is the point between the difference between a 8th ground bodhisattva and above, between that and full enlightenment, that even though they
Have overcome the afflictive
abstractions, there still is the appearance
Yes.
of
inherent existence,
inherent existence.
and that is preventing omniscience.
And that is so that in some way that's still conventional valid cognition. It's not an ultimate valid cognition.
Ultimate valid cognition means the direct perception of emptiness. Nothing's appearing except emptiness.
Right. Only ultimate valid cognition, the direct realization of emptiness and meditative equipoise, is unmistaken cognition. And then the second point, subsequent cognition, a category that includes all valid consciousnesses other than those which occur in the first moment of cognizing an object, is prime cognition. The consequent school interprets the pramāṇa as meaning prime, but not in the sense of first, rather in the sense of main.
So you're comprehending, if you say that I had a pramāṇa, you say, oh, that person, you say that person is authoritative, correct? We say it with respect to a person, pramāṇa, that person's a pramāṇa about such and such a subject. If you feel, well, my mind, arguing or somebody's unclear about what happened over in the lunchroom today, you were there, you have a consciousness that's a pramāṇa. So in the world, we don't say only the first moment of that is the pramāṇa. The whole thing's a pramāṇa. Therefore, the word within pra and mana means to measure, to comprehend. Pra should not be taken as meaning the first. It means valid cognition with respect to its main object. Dharmakirti and so forth make a big deal out of that pra as being the first. So in a cognition of an object, it's only that first effective series of moments, that effective first, because you don't cognize something right in the exact tiniest first moment, but that first period, then when you do have that cognition, then only that one's pramāṇa, and the rest of it is subsequent cognition. And Chandrakirti is saying, why are you making this difference? The world doesn't make this sort of difference. And you can see that his means of analysis is to say, well, the world does this and doesn't do that. He doesn't use a lot of reasoning. If you look at these 16 points and try to figure out what kind of analysis Chandrakirti is doing, with some of them, it's just, oh, the world doesn't say that. Like you do a Gallup poll and you find out, when you think of a pramāṇa, do you think of just the first moment, first period, or the whole thing? And everybody says, what? Everybody says the whole thing. Thus, outside of the Dhyāna-dharmakirti tradition, it can be, pramāṇa can be translated as valid cognition. We tried for years to figure out one word that would cover both, and prime does. Because prime can mean first, prime can mean main. It took years for that to surface. So is this going to be Chandrakirti's means of accepting what does and doesn't exist, what the world says exists? Buddha says, I assert what the world asserts. I do not debate with the world debates with me. Very cryptic statement, if you think about it. Because there are all sorts of things, even as Chandrakirti says that the world asserts that he doesn't assert, such as Ishvara, creator of the world. Next.
So in this one, it has, there are two assertions here. One that there's a conceptual mental direct perception, and another one that common beings may have yogic direct perception. The first one is made in contrast to the view of Dhyāna-dharmakirti, who assert that in mental direct perception the object is known directly without conceptuality. So Jam-dbyangs-bzhad-pa gives these two reasons that direct prime cognitions need not necessarily be non-conceptual consciousnesses. One is because mental direct perception in this context is asserted to be a memory consciousness.
Now, for instance, if you put it together that there's fire based on the reason that there's smoke, then your continual thought about it is, in, as I understand it, in Jayasheva's system, is a mental direct perception. Because you're no longer directly depending upon a sign. First part of it, you're depending on the sign. And then you're not depending on the sign anymore. Or if you're just remembering something, he's willing to call that mental direct perception. You saw it before. It's not by the power of any reasoning that you're remembering it now. He calls this Chandrakirti, well, Jayasheva's interpretation. Chandrakirti calls this mental direct perception. Whereas in the Dhyāna-dharmakirti school, they've figured out this, it's weird. Like when I pay attention to this yellow object, at the end of that continuum of perception, there's one tiny moment of mental direct perception of the object. What is it, you know? Or some people say, between every moment, it goes like this. Visual direct perception, mental direct perception. And I think another version is, once it starts, then along with it, you have mental direct perception. It's like clairvoyance at the mental clairvoyance. This is not just the mental consciousness paying attention to it. This is the mental consciousness directly paying attention to it. It's rather a marvelous idea. That we're in direct, almost like direct contact, you think, with everything in the world. But it passes, you see, like so, and nobody ascertains it on the level of an ordinary being. But a superior can see it. And Chandrakirti quite often is like on, what are you doing with all this professorial, thought, turning pramāṇa, this simple thing, into realization in the first moment, and now you've got this special mental direct, you're creating all of these things. So often he's trying to take a more worldly way that is a slap in the face to those systems. Yes?
Well, the other one is because mental consciousness is an experience, that is an experience of feeling is asserted to be mental direct perception. And I put Kozor's explanation here, although I don't understand the section.
I don't either. And neither he nor I did. In the many years we worked on it, I think. But at least I don't remember it. And it's not recalled when I read it. I read it at home.
Then the second part of the assertion is that common beings may have yogic direct perception. And this is contrasted to Dhyāna and Dharmakirti again, who say that yogic direct perception must be in a continuum of a superior.
So what kind of what would a common being be realizing directly that would be called yogic direct perception? Usually it's like direct cognition of emptiness, right? You achieve the path of seeing, and then you have yogic direct perception. And Chandrakirti is saying, even common beings can have yogic direct perception. For instance, impermanence. In order to reach the path of seeing, you have to realize emptiness directly. But in the other systems, you can reach the path of seeing by directly realizing impermanence. So that's what, generally speaking, is what's meant by the course or 16 4 attributes of each truth. But impermanence, suffering, selflessness, that'd be the coarse selflessness. Emptiness and selflessness, but on a coarser level. So you see, if you perceive impermanence directly, then you have yogic direct perception. Have you reached the path of seeing, according to Prāsaṅgika? No. Because you're not cognizing emptiness. And you see, in the other systems, this would constitute reaching somebody's path of seeing. So the Prāsaṅgikas agree, you can have direct perception of impermanence. I don't want to put that down, it's very important, very helpful, and so forth. But this can be achieved by a common being. What's a common being? Somebody who hasn't reached the path of seeing. Who do you think, now, among common beings, are there any people on paths? 5 paths? Do you think that this kind of common being might occur before the path of accumulation? No. But even on the path of accumulation, somebody could have direct perception of impermanence.
It's not any common being.
Yeah, it's not any. When it says common being, yeah, it seems, common path, Buddhist path being, right? So that's what is being said here. So the unique tenet, this comes out of the unique tenet that in order to overcome cyclic existence, you must realize the emptiness of inherent existence. So it's direct cognition of that is going to that's going to constitute the yogic direct perception that constitutes the path of seeing and above. Therefore, all other perceptions, such as direct perception of impermanence, as helpful as that may be, won't constitute path of seeing. Once it doesn't constitute path of seeing and can occur before, then there are some common beings who have yogic direct perception. So that comes from the tenet that you have to undermine the belief in inherent existence in order to get out of cyclic existence. Why? Because the belief in inherent existence propels desire, hatred, and so forth.
Why establish this point? I'm still a little unclear. Why would Chandrakirti take the time from his busy
take the time?
schedule to
Yes.
talk about?
You see, these 16 points, it's like you go through meditation on emptiness and you find this little thing, a book by an author, and you're trying to put together this person's world, and you get a little corner of something here that says, to reach the path of seeing, you have to cognize the emptiness of inherent existence directly. That may be the only source in Chandrakirti. So as an outflow of that, keep it straight that even though in other systems, direct realization of impermanence constitutes achieving the path of seeing, it doesn't here. So these are not the most important 16 points. These can be like that feeling is mental direct perception. And there's a tiny little, not even a sentence, there's a phrase from Chandrakirti that then they squeeze for its meaning. But the Chandrakirti was putting down this special type of mental direct perception that Dignaga and Dharmakirti put forth. That's clear.
What are the systems posit direct perception of impermanence as path of seeing?
Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra for low vehicle, Swatantrika-madhyamaka for low vehicle, because it's the coarse attributes. What is coarse attributes, the Four Noble Truths, and subtle attributes? It's only, this is one of our topics, it's only the Prāsaṅgikas who posit coarse and subtle attributes of the Four Noble Truths. Subtle has to do with inherent existence and the absence of inherent existence. You just work each of the attributes around that. Impermanence, I guess, is impermanence is qualified by an absence of inherent existence. I don't know. But instead of putting down the Four Noble Truths, why not retain the structure of the Four Noble Truths and work the cognition of absence of inherent existence into them? See, often it's felt, oh, in the Mahayana, we don't pay attention to the Four Noble Truths, okay? We have emptiness to realize. No, it's to teach that emptiness fits right into the structure of the Four Noble Truths.
If non-dual awareness is a cause of bodhisattva, how is that awareness different from the way of perception, which is not contained by cause?
You tell me. Inference realizing emptiness. Non-dual awareness has many meanings, and non-dual there. When Chandrakirti speaks of non-dual awareness as being a cause of becoming a bodhisattva, a possible cause of becoming a bodhisattva, it's that when you generate the intention, oh, I alone am willing to help all these sentient beings, and then when you think, well, what would I have to do to be able to do this? And you realize, you make a research, that's what an old Lama used to say. And you look around to see what you would have to achieve, and you realize that you have to achieve enlightenment, that you must achieve enlightenment, that it's only a Buddha who could do this. And then you, in order to, before you could promise, before a sharp person promises that she will do something, she must realize that it's possible to do it. It's interesting, even in our ordinary activities, how much we do or don't know that it's really possible to do something before we start it. Like, I'm going to learn such and such a language. How could you know with valid cognition? I suppose it's sort of the same, but you should take matters on faith. And this is just ordinary faith, that it can be done. A lot of people have done it, I could probably do it. And that's not to realize the valid cognition that you could get it. Whereas you see, it said that the sharp bodhisattva is somebody who must know that it's possible. So you know valid cognition, that enlightenment must be attained. How do you know that it's possible to attain it? You have to realize the emptiness of the mind. That the afflictive emotions of desire and hatred do not subsist in the basic structure of the mind. And through realizing that, you see enlightenment is possible. Then you can promise to achieve enlightenment. Now that's an inferential understanding. But again, inferential understanding is not, rattling off a bunch of words, okay? Ben? Next topic?
Next topic is chapter 5. First part is similar to what we were just talking about, pointing out that subtle emptiness needs to be object of one's meditation in order to uproot afflictions and to attain the quiet paths. The second part was more difficult, perhaps more interesting. Let's see, what did I say? Well, he's talking about all three of the times, past, present, and future, as being implicitly established as functioning things.
So, midakpa ngurbo, right?
So, and one of the examples that they gave was that birth causes both aging and death, or that the cause of aging and death is implicit within the condition of being born.
Where do you get this implicit? Implicit is such a technical word. Please drop it unless you
Okay.
have a real meaning.
Yeah. It was he used it, which is one reason I.
Really?
Yeah, he did. He sort of said that.
You show it to me tomorrow, next time.
Okay, so there's a difference in English between disintegration and disintegratedness. My understanding was that disintegratedness is more of a state or a condition
Oh, okay.
rather than a process.
Once it is established, let's see, he says, because the Sutra on 10 grounds and many perfection wisdom sutras say that aging and death are caused by the condition of birth, it is established that the death of a sentient being, disintegratedness, and pastness are functioning things. Therefore, all three, past, present, and future, are implicitly established. It's true. But don't get, from this earlier statement, you can then draw this conclusion. Okay. I stand half corrected.
Okay, now maybe you can, am I correct in assuming that disintegration relates to the activity of the process?
Now, when, according to Prāsaṅgika and above, does the disintegration of an object take place? In Vaibhashika, you have production of the object, that's one moment. Then abiding, one moment. Then there's disintegration. Some people add aging in between. So either 3 or 4 moments. And these are factors that in fact act on objects. And you can understand these are all Sanskrita, duje, compounded phenomena that act on objects. In Prāsaṅgika and above, they said all of these take place at the same time. The production of the object, the abiding of the object, the disintegration of the object, because the disintegration of an object means it's not staying for a second moment. You see, that can take place at the same time as the object itself. The abiding of the object means, I think it's continuation of similar type, something like that. Therefore, that can take place. Everything takes place in one moment of production. The disintegration and so forth. Therefore, disintegration, jikva, is itself impermanent, of course. But shikva, which is the object state of having disintegrated, they say is permanent, because it's a mere absence. Permanent doesn't mean existing forever. Now, Chandrakirti, of course, because he wants to, it's like these people have these systems, and he wants to go slap, slap. He says shikva is caused. Shikva also is caused. It's like death. Buddha said birth causes death. What is shikva? What's death? It's not dying, you see, it's death. This state of having disintegrated. So he makes shikva into something that's caused also, something that's impermanent. It takes place in the second moment. Yes, next topic.
Okay, this is disintegrating, this is the thing.
Oh, God, he has 2 sections on it?
And that effects are feasible.
Effects are what?
Feasible. Okay, he gives 4 reasons why disintegratedness is a functioning thing. If it did not exist, then it couldn't be a character of compounded phenomenon, or it couldn't be momentary, depending on who you want to believe, Jam-dbyangs-bzhad-pa or Noam Bellman. This is because if disintegratedness were a non-caused, non-thing, as it is asserted to be by the other schools.
Because it's a mere absence? That's what they're thinking. What could cause it?
It would be permanent and therefore not momentary or able to be a characteristic of compounding and therefore a compounding phenomenon. If disintegratedness were not a functioning thing, would have to exist inherently, and therefore the thing that is disintegrated would have to exist inherently, and nothing would be produced by causes, which I don't understand at all.
I don't think we have time.
But
Yeah.
disintegratedness is caused because it comes into existence, and therefore must be caused.
That sounds pretty good.
You get one there. If it's caused, it exists. And disintegratedness is established by even worldly renown. That is, people see that things disintegrate, and if people see a thing, it is not non-existent. Even Buddhist establishment of commercial existence. Jam-dbyangs-bzhad-pa goes on to present the argument that effects are feasible. He does this by saying that there are causes for futureness, that is, that the non-completion of the causes of a future moment are the cause of its non-production. He then defines pastness as a factor of disintegratedness of another thing that has already been produced. Since disintegration exists as a functioning thing, an action that has been done, it can cause effects even though it is past. So then past actions which have disintegrated can have future effects. And the point of all this is so that it's not necessarily a positive mind basis of all to positive.
It's stunning, isn't it? The shikpa of an action is sufficient to produce effects. That's the meaning. That's sufficient. You don't need a mind basis of all in which predispositions are positive, deposited.
But it has to be an impermanent functioning thing
It has to be
in order for it to
yes.
transfer from
Right.
shikpa into
Yes.
yoga or something.
Yes. In order to bear its fruit. Okay, and so how many more do we have to go?
5, 4.
4 or 5?
Yeah, 4.
4 to go?